Marvel has been following the same formula for over 10 years. Connected universes, similar visual styles, and a narrative we already know. But with the Fantastic Four, all of that is about to change. A movie set in the 1960s with retro-futuristic designs and practical sets, all of this seems to be a visual and narrative gamble that ends up being something completely different from what we've been used to. So in this video, we're going to explore why Marvel decided to change the Fantastic Four so drastically for this film, what this change means for Marvel's future, and how this new movie could be what they needed to get their universe back on track. But before we can understand why Marvel made such a drastic change, we need to go back to where it all started. It all begins when Marvel regained the rights to the Fantastic Four after acquiring Fox in 2019. In case you didn't know, Marvel didn't previously own the rights to the Fantastic Four, Fox did. And since then, all the fans were excited about the future of the Fantastic Four, and we couldn't wait to finally see them on screen. That's when, after some time in 2020, Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, officially announced that a Fantastic Four movie was in development. First, the person in charge of directing the film was going to be John Watts, which is the same director of the entire Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy, but that didn't happen. In the end, it was decided that Matt Shakman, known for the WandaVision series, would direct the new Fantastic Four film. Another very important person involved in this project is Michael Giacchino, who would be in charge of composing the soundtrack. And wow, he did an amazing job. Honestly, the soundtrack might be my favorite thing about the movie. Then, after some time, at Comic-Con, Kevin Feige officially introduced the cast of the Fantastic Four. There, the full title of the movie was revealed, which would be the Fantastic Four First Steps. At Comic-Con, Kevin Feige came on stage alongside Matt Shakman and the actors from the Fantastic Four, which they appeared together for the first time. This cast includes Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, which is the perfect cast, I love her so much, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and finally Ebon Moss as Ben Grimm or The Thing. It was also announced that Galactus will be the big cosmic antagonist, played by Ralph Ineson, and Julia Garner will bring Silver Surfer to life. Marvel also confirmed the release date, which is July 25 of 2025. One thing that Kevin Feige really emphasized was that this reboot wouldn't repeat the character's origin story, just exactly like they did with Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
One of the things we decided early on was not to do an origin story. One of the ways we're making our own thing is we're not telling the story of them going up and being changed. And we thought, well, let's just start this thing off on a completely new foot, and so we are beginning after that.
Marvel knows that most people already know these characters' backstories, so it wouldn't be necessary to adapt them again for the big screen. Then, after a long wait, Marvel finally released the first teaser for the Fantastic Four. This teaser showed that the movie would adopt a very retro-futuristic style and be set in an alternate version of the 1960s. The teaser begins by showing up a group of kids gathered around old televisions, about to witness the space launch of the team. You can see visuals from the era with classic cars and vintage technology, making it clear that the story doesn't take place in the current MCU, but instead in a kind of an alternate past. The four protagonists appear wearing white and blue spacesuits with the Four logo, while the screen reads "Prepare for Launch." All of this clearly gave us an important preview of what the new Fantastic Four movie would be like. But why this decision? Why change the visual style of the movie so much? Marvel has had a pretty similar aesthetics across its movies for some time now. Most are set in a present-day era, maybe with a year or two of difference, but this Fantastic Four movie did the complete opposite. Matt Shakman, the director, decided it would be a good idea to set the story in a retro-futuristic version of the 1960s. You can see this in all the promotional materials for the film. In the teaser, you can see the retro-futuristic aesthetic, the movie posters, the visual palette inspired by the space age, the TVs, the classic cars, and even the architecture of New York City. Even the inclusion of Herbie, the team's robot's assistant, shows this retro-futuristic sci-fi tone of the movie. The decision to set the movie in the 1960s was meant to create a connection with the original 1961 characters. Matt Shakman and his team drew inspiration from cosmic elements of the 60s. For example, the suits worn by the Fantastic Four are inspired by real astronaut suits from the 60s, during the time of the space race. So Marvel Studios decided to place this Fantastic Four in a more modernized and futuristic version of that era to do something new, while still capturing the feeling of the original Fantastic Four origin. And to do that, the 60s were key, mainly because that era was the birth of the Fantastic Four in the comics, as well as the golden age of real-life space exploration.
You know, our movie is set in in the 60s and
Right.
kind of retro future 60s, and it's a lot about the space race and about, voyaging out there. And so First Steps is partly to do with that idea of exploration.
You see, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby launched Fantastic Four #1 in 1961, right in the middle of the space race. In fact, that first comic debuted just 3 months after astronaut Alan Shepard became the first American in space. That's why setting the movie in the 60s allows them to convey the group's original roots as well as the historical context in which they were created. And Matt Shakman made perfect use of this. He always said that he loves the Fantastic Four, as well as the optimism the world felt during the space race. So in this story, our Fantastic Four aren't famous for being superheroes. They are already national heroes just for being astronauts in the space era. Their powers are just a little bonus.
And so it is infused with that whole idea of just looking to the stars and dreaming of a future where we would be space travelers. And so I really wanted to just imagine that instead of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, it was the Storms and Ben Grimm and Reed Richards heading off into space.
This approach that the director took helps link the 60s era with the character's origin story, creating a new kind of superhero story that feels fresh and original. But beyond the space race inspiration, Matt Shakman was also inspired by something else that was very interesting. The Fantastic Four are visually inspired by several films and sci-fi styles. One of them is the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. You can see this in the production designs, the suits, the gadgets of each character, the color palette, and the typography. All of these are aspects of the movie that have roots in very popular movies from the 60s. In addition to movies, one of the film's most notable influences is Stanley Kubrick. You can see inspiration in the practical effects and retro filming techniques. For example, instead of relying entirely on CGI, they built models and physical sets. The team created a 14-foot tall spaceship for the launch sequences, which emulate the use of miniatures that Kubrick used in 2001: Space Odyssey. The technology in the movie is also a mix between Marvel tech and Apollo 11 tech. So by combining all this, the Fantastic Four adopts an Atom Punk style, a style imagining the future, blending the geometric elegance of mid-century, designed with the technologic wonders of the space age. Of course, it's also inspired by Jack Kirby's original comic book illustrations. All of these decisions are meant to explore what kind of universe the Fantastic Four would live in if they had been imagined in the 60s. The result is a movie with some really interesting visuals, something Marvel has never dared to do before. And that's why they decided to change the entire visual aesthetics for this movie. But what does this mean for Marvel's future? Personally, I'm super excited that we're finally seeing Marvel innovate after giving us more of the same for so long. All this effort from the director to bring something new to the MCU, I'm sure it will be worth it. And you can already tell, the Fantastic Four looks incredible so far. I love the vibe it's giving off, and if you ask me, it proves one thing: Marvel can do something different. Marvel can deliver quality content. I really hope this movie isn't just a one-off, and that Marvel keeps finding new ways to tell stories and innovate in every film they make, because if they do, we're gonna have such a good time at watching Marvel films. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe for more because we're 20 subscribers away from hitting 500 subscribers, so I would really appreciate it if you subscribe. See you in the next video.